Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today's topic is My Parrot Hates Me. And I'm going to be talking about my experiences with difficult parrots in the past and talking about dealing with lots of aggression, rescues and generally difficult situations with parrots who may be displaying behaviours that are really challenging for us. So I thought it'd be really useful to share my experiences with you guys, share what I have done and what works, and just give you some general tips on how to help when you have an aggressive parrot. So I thought I'd start off by talking about some of my experiences with aggression in parrots, and I have had them, you know. A lot of people do have them. A lot of people on social media hide them, especially in the training world, because they feel it's shameful to show the process of working through it. A lot of people give up, which is really sad. I just feel it's really important to share my experience to show that, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It may not always be easy, but you can work through it. So let's talk about the biggest success story so far, which is Scampy. And when Scampy came to us as a rescue, he really did not like me. He had a problem with males because males had mistreated him in the past, and he had found it very difficult to deal with. He bonded to Sophie as well instantly, which made it a jealousy thing, and I had to deal with a lot of biting and aggression. However, with Scampy, I must admit it's a little bit easier than the other two examples I'm going to give, and I worked through it. I dealt with the biting by not reacting. I constantly kept putting reinforcement in. I kept on training with him. I just kept working at it. And you know, those initial bites which were really painful, the sort of flying at me, it just all slowed down with time and just eventually faded out, where it just never does it anymore. Sometimes he actually even prefers to be with me now and enjoys my company. But that did not happen instantly. That took a lot of time, effort and training. It wasn't just a quick fix. It wasn't a magical solution by going to some class. It was perseverance and work. And I could have easily given up on him and just walked away, but I didn't. And that's where we got the result, which is where these two other examples are going to be much more important to look at. Now let's talk about Kipling and Charlie, our two crimson belly conures. Now crimson belly conures, as you may have seen in my video and may have experienced yourself if you're watching this, can be very erratic, can be exceptionally bitey, and their bites really hurt. So we'll talk about Kipling first. So when Kipling came to us, we took him on because his previous owner couldn't look after him. Again, it's a rescue situation along with Louis, who only has one leg. And when we got Kipling, we thought, okay, cool, he's going to be fine. First time I got him out, first thing he did is fly straight to my head and chomp down on my head, really painfully, leaving probably a scar up there somewhere. It wasn't nice, it wasn't pleasant, and as the first experience for me, I found it quite disheartening, you know, and it was really bad. That aggression didn't change much for a long while. He was fearful of me because I was male, again due to similar situations, and it was really difficult to work through. I was stumped how to deal with this extreme aggression, you know, because if you can't just do normal training, what do? You know, especially if you're on your own, you know, the bird's out, they want to attack you all the time. It's not as if you can just be like, well, do a target for me, you know. So I had to think quite outside the box, and I will talk about some of these topics later about how you can work through these issues. And for me, what I found helped is just not being that active outside the cage. I took a very passive approach, and this may not work for every bird as well, by the way. I took a very passive approach. I let him bite my protective skin. I put thick hoodies on. I wore an extra layer, and I let him do it. And I didn't react to it. And eventually, he started getting bored of it. He stopped doing it because, in tandem with this, I was doing a lot of work inside the cage as well. So while I was doing this outside the cage, luckily with Sophie's support, inside the cage, I was doing constant target training. I was treating him through the bars. I was passive bonding, sitting next to his cage. I was just getting him used to me and trying to get him to see that I'm not a threat, and I'm also quite boring. You know, if he bites me, it's not really much of a fun reaction. And it took a lot of time, and even now, because he's a crimson belly, I get bit occasionally. Sophie still gets bit, but it's so much better with me now, you know. I can move around, I can be out. He actively wants to be with me. He wants to train with me. He wants to play with me. And there have been big setbacks. I got mauled on the face by him a while back, and that knocked my confidence with him. But I think, yes, the thing I'm trying to get through to you is we all experience this. Even trainers, you know, who educate, we all experience with this. Some may hide it, but it's the perseverance, it's the constant scientific training methods, for example, using positive reinforcement, using negative reinforcement, not reacting. Using stuff that's evidence-based rather than just assuming your bird hates you and just being like, whatever, I'm going to give them up because I can't work through it. if you're willing to put the time in and have the time and effort, you can work through it. And again, we'll talk about Charlie, then we'll talk about how you can do this in a more general sense rather than just my examples. Now with Kipling, there was a very sort of defined graph. We've got a like baseline which is quite low, and then we went down a bit, and then we started going up, and it was trending. There was little dips. It was always trending up the graph. With me and his relationship, it's always improving. Just with a bit of instability. With Charlie, it's a different example. Charlie came to our house. I visited him first. We took him on because again, a similar situation. Previous owners couldn't look after him anymore. They went to go somewhere nice, and we wanted a friend for Olive. They wanted him to have a friend too, and he initially wanted to step up on me, completely fine. He stepped up to me there. He was happy to be with me and play with me and train with me, and then that graph started plummeting. And there's so many theories because of this. Just the settling in period, looking like his vet, my clothing, my voice was another theory. What else was there? There was another important one. Basically the bonding with Olive because the hormone factors coming in, very strong hormonal reaction, lots of different theories, and this is something we're trying to work out because if you can find some of the reasons behind it, helps. But then Charlie's become very aggressive, and again I'm back in that situation. It could be just crimson bellies don't like me, but I'm back in that situation where I'm like, what do I do here? Because I can't use my normal training techniques. I can't ask him for targets outside the cage. I can't get him to come to me because he's just going to start mauling me immediately, and that's not going to give me the chance to reinforce him, apart from obviously not reacting, just not giving into it. So again, I had to try and take a step back and think, oh my goodness, what do I do? And I used a similar approach, I must admit, and started trying to find little ways of finding the little chip where I can start working on it. And again, this came from just thinking about it lots, and patrons may already know about this. So I found two ways I can train with him. One is he's very responsive to target training with me inside the cage, no matter where he is. Great, I can start positively reinforcing him for calm there. Number two is when I'm painting or doing work, he likes to sit with me in his cage, and he will be calm, he'll be relaxed, and it will give me the opportunity to earn reinforcement from me while he's calm, and for me to reinforce it. And I found that little chink, and I'm working on it right now. It could be a long road. He's attacking me less when he's out, and I'm working on just that as well. But yeah, it is a long road. It is difficult, but I am already seeing improvement, and I've found my little chink in the armour where I can start working on it, which I think is so important for my well-being, a person's well-being, so they can feel more confident doing stuff and feel like they're achieving something, and also for his, so he can start getting used to me in a productive manner. Right, now you've heard my story and working through all this stuff, let's talk about some general tips. If you have this extremely aggressive bird, you relate to this, because I relate to your situation. I know what it's like to be bitten aggressively. I know what it's like to have someone else in the house they love, and for you to be that victim almost of the aggression. So let's talk about how you can work through it and what tips I would give you. So my first tip is time, effort and patience. You're not going to achieve anything without those things. It's going to take time, a variable length. It could take a very short amount of time and your bird will adapt very quickly, or it may be absolutely ages. You have to be patient with those bites, you have to be patient with that bird. It is a waiting game, and it's an effort game, and again, effort, lots and lots of work, putting in that training, doing what you can, where you can. Like I said in the Charlie example, finding that chink in the armour and working from the basics. That could be something as simple as passive bonding next to that cage. If that's all you can do, that's great. That's where you'll start. That's where you can work from. Just targeting through the bars, holding a treat up in the cage, because don't forget the cage is protected contact for you and them. They'll hopefully feel safer in there, and it'll be nicely furnished. You'll feel safer out, and that gives you a starting point. And just keep working on it, and don't give up. Don't give up the bird, unless you absolutely have to, because it's going to put it in that same situation again and again. You can stop that line, where that bird keeps getting rehomed. You can be that line, and you can feel good about that. So just keep trying. This next one's really important, and that's trying not to take things personally and anthropomorphizing the bird. I frequently hear, my bird hates me, my bird's mean, my bird's angry, and you can use that, you can throw that word around a little bit. Even this topic, I realise it's ironic, but that's why I wanted to have it there, is anthropomorphizing. But don't take it personally, don't anthropomorphize the bird. It is there are reasons behind these behaviours. It could be fear, it could be hormones, it could be a change in environment, it could be all sorts of things. And those reasons are why the bird is behaving that way, not because they're just inherently mean or angry. And working out those reasons and not taking things personally is half the battle won. If I can start working out why Charlie is more aggressive towards me now, then it gives me a place to work from again and somewhere I can develop training techniques to work around them. And if it is just because he doesn't like men, then he's just going to get used to me. I have to work on desets and show him that I am a good person and that I am a lovely, fun person to be around. Really important, remove expectations. I think that's really important in any sort of training, and I am starting to sort of really try and take that message to heart. Remove expectations. Don't expect easy training sessions. Don't expect bad training sessions. Enter into it every time with an open mind and see what happens, because you may be pleasantly surprised, you may be unpleasantly surprised, but if there's no expectation, you just, okay, I've dealt with that, I will carry on, good or bad. Again, just to reiterate a previous point, biting and aggression has a reason. Find out that reason if you record the sessions, if you have someone else step in to see if it's different, work out the reasons and help. And that follows on to my last point, which is follow biting protocol. When you're getting bitten, and I know it can be painful and difficult, protect yourself as best you can, and there's no shame in that, by the way. You know, just do what you have to do. But follow biting protocol. Don't flap around, don't react, don't punish them. Try and endure it for a little while. If you can, move them to a neutral location rather than putting them back in the cage, and then try and give them an opportunity to earn reinforcement. If that's not possible, then try and give them something else to redirect them, even if it's just putting them on a food bowl full of high value treats to get them off you to redirect that behaviour. And again, be careful not to accidentally reinforce the biting through that. Try and allow some time. And if it's so extreme when they're out that you can't do any of that, work with it in the cage for a while. You know, we're talking about the long road here. If your parrot has to be in a cage for a week without coming out, that's the way it has to be, you know. It's much better for that parrot to be in that cage for a week and then be able to come out for a lot longer and a lot more regularly than that parrot being in a cage a lot more over a longer period of time and getting a lot less outings, a lot less fulfilling outings. A lot of people don't like me saying that, but I'd much rather go for the much bigger benefit later on rather than the short-term pain of it. And it can be the same with screaming as well. Sometimes you have to work for excessive screaming in a similar way, but generally it benefits us and them a lot better. And that, again, comes from the view of a cage as a cage rather than the bedroom. If they have a tiny cage, then yeah, you know, it's not ideal. But if you furnish it well, it's big, then there's no reason why they can't be in there for a while you're trying to work through these problems and start to get to the point where they can be out, even if it's not in an ideal situation. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. I tried to be frank and honest about my experiences with these parrots. As I said, with Scampy, perfect picture these days. He loves being with me. With Kipling, it's an improving picture as well. You know, much more recently. With Charlie, we're right at the start of that road, so I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it'll go well. I'm going to keep working at it. I hope my experiences as well as these tips will help you in these situations. Remember, if you really struggle, we've got our business Best Behaved Birds. You can reach out to us. We'll try and help you through our consultations. But in the meantime, if you have any comments, drop them down below. But yeah, take care everyone and stay birdie.